Hey everybody, welcome back to the weekly immigration news recap where we break down what changed in U.S. immigration this week and what signals came from the Trump administration that could impact your immigration situation if you're a foreign national or your client strategy if you're an immigration practitioner. Today is Thursday, July 24th. It's about 2:30 p.m. Eastern, and this episode will be released tomorrow morning on Friday the 25th. And here with me today to offer her insight and context around this week's immigration news is Elizabeth Garvish, the founder and managing member of Garvish Immigration Law Group. Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking the time to recap the news with me this week. I'm really grateful to have you here with me. So, how's everything going with you in your practice this week?
Doing great. We've actually had a lot of green cards approved lately, family-based and employment-based, long pending cases we had interviews for. So I'm feeling good. Like we've had a lot of wins, and we do celebrate our wins at Garvish Immigration Law Group. So it's been a good week for us.
That's awesome. Well, before we dive into the news, can you just tell the folks listening a little bit more about your professional background, your current practice, and the types of clients that you support?
Yeah, so I've been practicing immigration law for a very long time, and I'm not going to age myself, but it's a long time. The current law firm that I have, I started 14 years ago after having significant experience in big law and in nonprofits and boutique and different kinds of things. And I started this law firm because I didn't really fit the mold of like the regular lawyer. So I had this idea of creating the happiest law firm in America. And I thought, maybe it's possible that we can like really have great joy while practicing law, even though the practice of law has a lot of pessimism and negativity and fear and things that we really got to tell everyone what's going to happen bad, and we're focused on that all the time. But if we could we do it a different way than our law school training. So that's the law firm. I say we practice law with love, and that if you think of love as a frequency and an energy, we're gonna show up in that high vibration state all the time. And they also call love the miracle frequency. So we actually are really good at creating miracles for our clients when other lawyers are looking at the doom and gloom. We are focusing on what we can do, and we're putting that out there, not focused on what's going to go wrong, but what can go right. So that's a little bit about us. Um, we're based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we've got team all around the world, and we're focused mostly on employment based, and we do a lot with the healthcare sector. So physicians, med techs, nurses. I love those clients. We've got some big hospitals that are clients, medical practices. We work with these employers that are in underserved areas. It's such fulfilling, amazing work. And then we also love to work with investors, innovators, creatives, other employers that are in all kinds of industries, manufacturing, tech. Um, just like we have the coolest clients, honestly, and it's a joy to work with them.
Well, I love that. And I love the founding ethos of your law firm. So since you're our special guest co-host today, we will adopt that ethos throughout
Yes.
this entire podcast. And that's the energy that we'll bring to the table. So just to give all the listeners a sense of how this is going to work today, Elizabeth and I will spend the next maybe 30 or 40 minutes breaking down all of the important developments that happen in immigration news this week, from litigation updates to what's happening in the courts and Congress, which is not so much this week, and what's happening inside of the Trump administration and all of the various immigration agencies. Some cases, we might just recap the headline quickly, just so you know what's happening. But in others, we'll go more in depth. And the goal is to help any practitioner or foreign national listening, understand how the news story or the trend or the signal that we're covering could impact your client strategy or your personal case. And lucky for me and for those of you listening, we have Elizabeth here to tell us exactly what she's seeing on the ground and in her practice, and put some of those headlines into real world context for us. And then at the end, we'll save a little bit of time for Elizabeth to talk about a trend or a story or something that she's been tracking, but maybe hasn't gotten a lot of attention by the broader immigration community yet. So, with that, Elizabeth, are you ready to jump into today's news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can look at the first story, which has been all the buzz since it came out last week. So for those who are watching on YouTube, you can see the article on our screen. If you're listening on Spotify, you can go over and watch this on YouTube if you'd like, but we'll orate it a little bit. So this is an article from Andrew Craybon from last Friday, July 18th, in Bloomberg Law. DHS, excuse me, Department of Homeland Security proposed a rule for a weighted selection of H-1B petitions. So this is in the very, very early stages. It's actually something that the Trump administration tried at the end of the first go around in 2020, and it didn't go through in the Biden administration. But essentially, the rule would completely change the way the H-1B lottery works, and it would give preference to employees, foreign national employees, and registrants in the H-1B law who have a higher salary. So Elizabeth, you were obviously practicing during the first Trump administration. I'm sure you remember, the buzz around this rule at the beginning. And what's your reaction to the very early attempt by the Trump administration to bring this one back around?
Yeah, so I just want to start off like, listen, they tried it back then, and I remember this, and they were, we were in an interesting, I feel like with the employment-based area of immigration law, we haven't like had a ton of changes happen. It's just a matter of time. I felt like after the 4 years of the last Trump administration, we really did have a lot happening. But you know what? Things, it's this didn't go through. And also, if it does go through, like things can change. Policies do change with administration. So I just hate for people to be the doom and gloom. And, if you got an H-1B right now, you've got 3 years, like, are they not going to are they, this is just for the lottery. Okay. It's like, there might be other options. So I just want to put that out there because it sounds really scary. Like especially for nonprofit, that aren't, that aren't, cap exempt, that are having like lower, because there are those out there, those nonprofits that are not cap exempt for like educational institutions, and that are not cap exempt. I mean, it could be really, I mean, devastating to not be able to get those H-1B workers, but I think possibly there's other strategies there. We've seen this before, and yeah, it's just part of the Trump strategy. I mean, like all immigrants out. I mean, I just really feel like let's make it as hard as possible. It's not I mean, H-1Bs are like, it's such an amazing visa because it's so broad, and you can, if your job requires a bachelor's degree, and and new jobs are coming and being created all the time, and you can get an H-1B. So this is a proposal. Let's wait and see what happens. And if it is put into place, we've got all the way to fiscal year 2027. It's going to be devastating for the short term for some people, possibly, but you might be able to extend your STEM OPT. You might be able to do something else. We're going to look at the alternatives for you, and a new administration might be right around the corner. So I just want to keep people like, we don't want to create the reality yet. So that's my take on this. Like, I see it's like it's like there's so much bad news out there. And I just want to share kind of how I try to manage bad news. Yeah. I mean, if you represent big tech companies, you represent big corporate, then yeah, it's going to be a problem. I hire H-1Bs. My legal assistants and some of my case managers are H-1Bs or have been H-1Bs. Can I even make the lottery? So it affects me personally. It is going to be a problem especially for small businesses and different professions. So certain professions just are not paid at a high level of salary. So it's going to just take those out. So it's not a good proposal at all, but what are we going to do? I mean, there's like most proposals and most changes that we're seeing during this administration are not good for our country.
And one more thing I want to share on this. This is a LinkedIn post that I'm showing on the screen here from Doug Rand, who's the former senior advisor to the USCIS director during the Biden administration. And for folks who listen to this podcast, he's frequently featured here. But Doug's just pointing out that the rule is in the earliest stages of the rulemaking process, but he expects that in the next couple of weeks, it will move to the point where public comment will be open. So that's Elizabeth, like you mentioned, that's the opportunity for immigration lawyers, businesses, industry groups to voice concerns they have about this change to the H-1B lottery. So the article from Andrew will be linked in the show notes, and I'll link Doug's LinkedIn post as well, so folks can go and check it out. Final thing, Doug does warn, and this is Elizabeth, I think, maybe one of the biggest differences between the first Trump administration and the second Trump administration is that this time around they're moving a lot quicker with a lot of these policy changes. And Doug expects that a change like this, in theory, could move to the final stages by the end of this calendar year. Like you said, doesn't mean it's going to be implemented going into next year's cap by any means, but it could move a lot quicker than maybe it did in the first time around. So,
Yeah,
any
I
final
mean,
thoughts? Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that, I mean, unfortunately, like public comments and, I I don't think that's going to have a huge effect. I mean, like you have to have a reason. You have to feel bipartisan. I think, in this administration, things are, they're already, they've got their mind made up. Stephen Miller's at the helm here, and, it's the way it is. I mean, I think there's like a nationalist agenda, nativist agenda, and, not to give up on that. I think we do need to speak out because the pendulum will swing back, but I think we need to be prepared. And for people that are applying for the H-1B lottery, I mean, we have lots of people we applied for that'll probably apply next year. We'll just got to get those strategies, just talk to your immigration lawyer, get your strategies in place. Most people have additional options with, there are options out there. Maybe not the number one thing that you want to do, but maybe let's work on that green card faster. Let's do something else. So I think it's good to have this information, but to think about it in a way that, okay, this is going to help me plan.
Yeah. So many changes happened to the H-1B cap process over the last 4 years, if you think about it. And a lot of them were implemented sort of last minute. It shifted to online a few years ago. That was very clunky, and they shifted from submitting all applications to submitting a registration first. And then in the last 2 years or so, there was the rules to prevent fraud in the lottery, which decreased the overall number of applications. How have you handled those changes with your clients? What do you think has worked really well in terms of helping getting them prepared for these last minute, often unpredictable changes?
Yeah, I mean, we just, I think that being able to file your H-1Bs online is actually great. It's actually, I think we finally now we're filing our H-1Bs online for every client, and we have a lot of cap exempt clients. So, we can get things done pretty quickly. I feel like I actually, because people are on vacation, and I actually did a lot of the lottery entries myself this year, and so much better. And so I'm going to say it like it is a lot better. And I'm glad. I feel like these were thoughtful, good changes. Now, the lottery itself and the fact that we have this quota is a thing that's not serving our country. Um, that has to be changed by Congress. So actually, no, because they were able to during, the government has the ability to do a lot of things, um, probably who's around during this time? Y2K, if anyone remembers that. Look it up in your history books. There was like they did increase the like 1988, 1990, like 19 like it was like because during the change from 1900s, my kids are like, "Were you born in the 1900s?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so the change from like 19 to 2, it was gonna like do a lot of issues with all of the tech and the software. So they needed additional tech workers. And so they actually increased the lottery levels during those years leading up to that. So they can do whatever they want. This is like it is it's they don't want to. The goal of this administration is to like, decrease immigration. I mean, it's under the guise of, like, I always read this, we're going to protect from invade. I like to read the USCIS, like, USCIS, now what they're posting on their, we're protecting the US from invasion. Just like, are you kidding? This is crazy. So it's like, it's almost comical, and sometimes you're just like, okay, yeah, we get it. We get where you're going with this. I mean, I still don't understand, like, what I'm trying to understand, and I'm getting off the topic, but is just the why. It's unfathomable to me, especially working in immigration for all these years and, like, having this beautiful experience, dedicating my life to this. It's and especially, throughout the history of our country, and knowing what immigrants have done for us. I mean, it's everywhere, but so it's just interesting to see. And I know, like, I just, what is the truth out there? I mean, like, a lot of things, I think everyone just needs to understand their strategy in politics and strategy in government. You know, things are done for a reason. And definitely immigration's a great platform to win on. And if you ran on that, you've got to, if you don't fulfill your promise, then that's going to be an issue. So this is part of that. Um, Whether it's helpful to our country or not, um, I don't think that matters. So, that being said, I feel like we have had some, the changes that have happened with the H-1B, the lottery system. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous to have to, like, prepare all your H-1Bs, mail them to or FedEx them to the immigration service. And then a few months later, they all come back to you if you didn't get the lottery. That was crazy. So the lottery was great. Then we just saw, fraud and multiple registrations and all these things. And then USCIS was actually looking at enforcing fraud, and, like, there was issues there. And now they've got the one passport, and for the registrations, just based on your passport number, which is fine. Um, the lottery's the problem. Can the government make it better? They can. It's probably not going to happen now, but we're just going to continue in the status quo until things change. I always say this is like my, literally, with this move. I'm actually moving to Madrid with my family.
We're
Um,
excited to have you here.
yes, and I did this pretty fast, because I'd been dreaming about it forever. But, like, with that, I'm just like, we'll figure it out, and with everything that's coming, we will figure it out. My clients are asking me, hey, what's going to happen if this is going to get denied, or what's going to happen if this, or, I mean, I don't know the future, but you know what? We're going to figure it out. And I'm certainly not going to think about a future that I don't want. It's good to be aware, um, of things, and understand the situation, but we are in charge of creating our future, and, like, our thoughts are really important pieces of that. So I know when things seem tough, we'll figure it out.
Absolutely. Well, moving on to the next news item, sort of the other big story that's been developing throughout this week, is, and it's still sort of in the rumor stage, folks trying to understand exactly what's going on. But I'll share my screen here with an attorney named Samir Kedekar's LinkedIn post. So shout out Samir for providing a lot of updates on what he's been seeing with this. But Elizabeth, I know, as you've heard and you've seen. USCIS is issuing NTAs for H-1B holders who are in their grace period, so who have been laid off and are on their 60-day grace period looking for their next job, their next H-1B sponsorship. And this is something that a lot of attorneys have been tracking. We at Lawfully have been trying to figure out a way to quantify the scale of how many folks this is happening to, how many H-1B holders in their grace period are getting NTAs. It's difficult because they get mailed out physically. There's no online sort of case status update that indicates it. But a lot of attorneys have sort of been crowdsourcing information. I asked Samir on this LinkedIn post how many instances he's heard about where this happened. He mentioned at least 100. So it's really becoming a concerning trend here. And before I go to you for your reaction and your insight on this, Elizabeth, just one more thing I want to share. USCIS actually, speaking of their social media, actually bragged a little bit about NTA issuances increasing in the Trump administration. So this is uh, a news feed from their website that they posted back on June 12th. And if you look in here, they talk about the number of NTAs that they've been issuing a week since the Trump administration came into office. So they estimate that they're issuing 840 NTAs a week. It's a 2,811% increase in fraud-related NTAs per month from what the Biden administration was issuing during their time. And they don't give a ton of specifics, but they say approximately 500 of those NTAs per week are for asylum-based cases, and about 100 are for TPS-related cases. So that leaves 1,200, per week that they're issuing that could be for, a variety of different case types. Another article that I want to plug quickly here too is one from Andrew Craybon. He did a deep dive on this in Bloomberg Law, where he really goes into the history of the last sort of 6 months and what USCIS has been doing when it comes to arrests at field offices, issuing NTAs to different foreign nationals, and et cetera. So we'll link all of that in the show notes so folks can take a look. But Elizabeth, what's your reaction been to this trend? Again, obviously it's a lot of rumor right now. There isn't a lot of hard evidence, nothing official from USCIS, but what are you seeing? What are you telling your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they have to create the policy. So I guess that USCIS, they have to create the policy so that the officers will follow the policy. And if you ever talk to, and I go to immigration. I mean, during the 4 years of Biden, we weren't going as much. Now we're going more. So I've been in immigration a lot, and it helps me to see there are still the same officers, at immigration. I have been calling like Texas Service Center. I've been feeling out, you know, the vibe. Um, because you put a policy in place and then you've got to have someone who's going to institute that policy. So I think it takes time for that to come about. And what I've heard is, many officers have taken retirement, many are leaving. They actually are very overworked and they've got a lot going on. But I was fortunate to see, at least in the local offices, we still have the same, you know, there are still those same people there that have been there for, I mean, during my whole career. And they're still doing a good job. All the interactions I've had with officers are good. Conversations on the phone with officers at the different service centers have been good. So, this is a policy, and yes, I'm glad we know about it. There's always a risk. I think there's always a risk if you have something denied. Um, if it's an H-1B and we have a policy of grace period, yeah, you shouldn't be just jumping the gun and issuing these NTAs. But haven't we seen over the last 6 months, the government really doesn't follow even the old policies or the law in some cases, and they don't care. So at least we know a little bit about this. I'm grateful for this information because I think that now we could work with employers, get the data. Thank you for collecting this data. We can work with employers. Hey, we're going to let you go, but maybe I won't withdraw that case until I know that you've got another case filed, or no one's going to an employer doesn't have to withdraw the H-1B like immediately the day the employer goes. I mean, there's some time. I mean, there's got to be some time. There's not even a time limit, but we filed the withdrawals, like, withdraw your LCA and then eventually withdraw your USCIS application. If you care about your employee that's leaving and these layoffs, maybe employers can come together with the clients and make it a little bit easier. Or, I think that's one of the ways, we're aware of this, and maybe we can make some changes to like avoid getting the NTAs issued, because it really does seem like, and maybe it is just like pressure to fill quotas, because I know we've heard that in the deportation side where they're going, they're going to a lot of places like that they would normally not go. I mean, it seems like they're not their part. It was interesting because like in the other administrations, they have enforcement priorities and we don't have those anymore. So it's anybody. Um, so yeah, I mean, um, I just it's really hard to read this news. Um, it's it's this idea like there really isn't certainty. We have the rug pulled out from us. Um, but but I think, that's when we really need to, you know, just know that, and I literally, it's like things, this is changing fast. Things will change fast. We feel like, I mean, look back at your life, like policies are going to change. Things, well, like we just talked about with the H-1Bs, like it's going to be okay, but it's good. I just feel like we really, like as immigrants, as lawyers, as immigration advocates, like we really got to take everything with a grain of salt. We've got to gather the information. It's really important to like know what's happening. And then you've got to sit back and like, how am I going to process that? And like, what perspective am I going to look at this? And what lens am I going to look at this through? Um, what's a solution? I feel like many times lawyers are just like, here's everything that's going to go wrong. And like the people leave the office and they're just like on the floor. And I try to like understand because I've been in the same boat with like, maybe it's like a doctor's appointment or like when I was going through fertility treatment, fertility, I have my two sets of twins now. Um, yeah, you'd hear all these percentages and this and that, and you're just like, oh my God, you just want to like crawl out of there and cry in your bed. But I think, take everything with a grain of salt. Like, what helped me when things just seemed so bad is I had to change the thoughts within me. And I think having the information is important, but how the life looks every day is also important. And that's how our thoughts really come into that. So I'm always going to be the super optimistic, positive one. People are going to hate me for that, but I'm not, if you're a hater, I'm not even in your frequency. So I'm not going to hear you. So, um, but it's like, it's the only way to live. And it's like the only way I can even stay in this work. Because I value it and I think it's important. And, you know, these people are just vindictive and mean. It's like they're like the cruel bullies on the playground. It's just gross. Like I sometimes think like, oh my gosh, did you go home from work and be like, hey honey, guess what I did? I issued like 1,000 NTAs for H-1B workers. What? Oh, and they were still in their grace period. Ha ha. That's crazy. So just think about it, guys. This is this is insane. And it's not going to last. I mean, I've been practicing for a long time and there's been lots of ups and downs and with the pendulum will swing back. But yeah, I mean, you just have to be like, this is ridiculous. It's horrific and ridiculous. I don't
Well,
know what else.
I'm really glad that you brought up, and I appreciate the optimism, but I'm really glad you brought up the fact that having this information out there and practitioners sharing it with each other will empower employers and practitioners to at least do something about it to maybe address some of the lack of fairness that's involved in this new trend that we're tracking. So
Yeah, I
something
mean,
we'll keep a close eye on.
I have to say, the employer now we started to get more employers with I-9 compliance issues. Oh my gosh, it is so gratifying. These employers, especially they have TPS and parolees and working in their companies and they're of course sometimes they have to let them go because of different issues, until they can get another work permit or whatever. But oh my gosh, just my small cross section of employers, they really care. And I think there's a lot of people in this world that really value immigrants in our country, of course, value immigrants. And I think, yeah, having the information is really important. But how we see this information, how we use it is very important. And we can't let it like, you know, get us too down, but just be prepared. It's like you're going to be prepared, but you're not going to focus on that because, that's why I got to tell my clients. So like, what are you going to do if it gets denied? I'm like, we'll get to that later. Don't worry. Like, or no, we'll never get to that. And we may never get to that. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm focusing on the exact thing that I want to happen. So, it's good to have information. I mean, it's like very important. And that's in every decision I make. You know, we gather that information and then we kind of like sit back and make those decisions. So, but like this information that we're receiving and like how it's presented by some media is catered to get to that fear sector inside of us and that panic. And I'll just tell you something about fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, you can't think clearly. You're not functioning properly. You know, because all your blood's going to your extremities you know, so it's like we still need to remain calm, gather the information, take a deep breath, and then kind of decide how we're going to go with that. And so, and I think optimism is like a really good way to keep that high vibration going as well.
Absolutely. Well, there's one more story that I want to spend a little bit of time on, and then we can sort of rapid fire the headlines for the remaining stories because I want to save a little bit of time for you to talk about the trend that you think is sort of under the radar, not getting enough attention paid to it. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is a clip from the acting ICE director, Todd Leon. So we don't get a lot of public comment on camera from a lot of the Trump administration immigration officials. So when we do, I think I always watch the interviews and look for little tidbits or signals in there of maybe, you know, what could be coming down the pipeline from the Trump administration in terms of policy. Okay, so I'm going to play just a short clip and then I'm going to skip ahead and I'll play another one and then I want to get your reaction to this.
Country illegally. But we have also seen ICE arrest day laborers outside of Home Depots, in some cases farm workers, people attending their court hearings and immigration court. Is the policy still to prioritize the arrest and deportation of people who are here illegally, but also are violent offenders?
Yes, that's one thing. And that's one thing where I'm extremely focused on since I became the acting director, is the fact that the President and Secretary Noem made a promise to the American public that ICE.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to sort of just his follow-up comment on this.
Criminal warrants to focus on these American businesses that are trying to make an extra dollar on the backs of these people that came here for a better life.
So you are planning on holding accountable the employers, the companies that are hiring people who are here illegally, not just the workers?
100%.
Because that has been a concern.
It is. It is. I can definitely see that concern. But what I would say is that we have.
So, Elizabeth, the reason why I wanted to share this clip in particular is because throughout June, with what happened in Los Angeles, there was a lot of, we got a lot of inside information from the Trump administration around this debate of whether or not the Trump administration is going to prioritize enforcement for undocumented workers, or if they're going to focus primarily on folks who are here without documentation who have criminal records, right? And we've gotten, a lot of mixed signals from the Trump administration on what the plan is. Here's the acting ICE director on CBS News, on Face the Nation, in a wide-ranging interview, declaring that the administration's focus is on going after employers for immigration violations as part of their broader immigration enforcement actions. Obviously, he was speaking specifically about undocumented workers, but you mentioned I-9, right? This is something that employers are thinking more and more about, are investing more and more time and resources into, and I'm sure it's taking up a lot more time of your day in your practice. So I just wanted to get your thoughts and your comments on sort of the overall Trump administration, USCIS, ICE, DHS, and their plans for immigration enforcement, specifically for employers.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of employers reach out. We have like 3 or 4 new clients that, especially because it's very confusing. So there's something new, especially with the parole, the Haitian, Nicaragua, Venezuelan, Cuba, especially with that. And then the TPS, and it's so many things. So they're really, employers want to comply with this. I remember, I'm going back to Y2K, and now I'm going back to like when I first started practicing, and it was like a thing. I mean, there were raids. I mean, I don't know if you've seen like I'm really going back, but like the movies, like they used to see the movies where they would make fun in these movies, and like it wasn't even, it was INS back then. INS would run into like these like, and then everyone would be scrambling. I mean, this is not new. And under different administrations, there would be more enforcement. I used to do a lot more I-9 work, back in the day. It hasn't been as much. And I really think there's not that much, large scale undocumented employment, especially, for maybe on a small scale and here and there. I don't know, but most corporate people are very religiously following these I-9 regulations. And now we have E-Verify. It's electronic. I mean, there's no way around it. Before it was paper. There's like all these papers. You'd go in and do an I-9 audit of all this paper, and you're just like, oh, that looks, no, not even copies of the documents, it's just like, it would just be really hard to like, you'd be looking at the dates and all of that. So it's much different, and employers are much more sophisticated. So maybe they're going to be doing these large scale operations, but I would say the majority of employers, and even before Trump got into office, one of my colleagues was like, can you do this big scale audit of I-9s for these companies? And then I've had 3 new clients come on that want I-9 audits. I've had lots of questions. Employers want to do the right thing. So that's great. I mean, if there are bad actors and they are truly like labor trafficking or doing something, I don't think that's that bad. I mean, great, enforce that. I mean, protect these workers, but then, get them like a visa or help them in some regard with a humanitarian option. But yeah, we have a lot of employers that really, of course, they want to comply with the law. They're worried. They're in this environment of fear. They might lose their job in HR. So I think, yeah, I mean, that's great. I don't think this is like a rampant, there's this idea that employers are hiring foreign workers, on H-1B or other status because they don't want to pay the U.S. worker their salary. That's absolutely not true in my experience. And then there's this idea that, this under the table work. I mean, I just don't think that is, maybe in the agricultural area, but even with H-2Bs, I mean, those are used up like crazy. So that's great. I mean, do the enforcement. I'm not that worried about that. I'm just not that worried about that. And if there is someone who's truly violating the law, great. I mean, maybe they'll catch them, but I would ask that, I would hope that the administration would really focus on those priorities, the violent criminals. I mean, I want to live in a safe country. I don't want people to be labor trafficked, because that's basically what it is. I don't want that to happen as well. And I mean, if you stick to those, and that's what enforcement is for. I think they are crossing a huge line, and they're trying to meet quotas now, and they're doing that. That's why people are acting. That's why people, like general public, are reacting. Because have you ever in your life like seen mass police officers like come and like pick up people and throw them in a van? I mean, we see that now, we're seeing that, and it's crazy. So that's a big shift. And have you ever seen, and a lot of this is media, and I haven't verified everything. And, what do I really believe? What is blown out of proportion and what's not blown out of proportion? We don't know. Like, if we're not there physically, we don't know. And so that's why what I try to do is, where do I get my information? I mean, I have over 13,000 colleagues in American Immigration Lawyers Association that are living this, and we are collaborating together and understanding and seeing everything. I read the Federal Register. I look at the pleadings. I have, I'm very close with a lot of immigration attorneys that I can have discussions, and I can understand kind of the trends. And of course, AILA, American Immigration Lawyers, gives us a lot of information, but You know, it's just, yeah, it's not, this is not a solutions oriented environment. This is, and it feels so different. It feels like night and day. But the first 4 years of Trump, like I never really knew kind of what like post-traumatic stress syndrome might feel like until, because like things would come out on a Friday, things would come on a Friday afternoon, the forum would like end. We'd have no grace period. We have to, and then we already have our cases ready. And then we'd have to file things. And then just, it was like over and over and over and over again, just like, we're going to wear you down. We're going to wear you down, And like, I just like, wow, I'd never felt that before. And then we got Biden into office, and then it was like the sun came out again. And like, it was like reasonable, like birds were chirping and things like that. And like, it wasn't that anything had changed in the regulations for the most part, but it was that people were reasonable. The policies weren't so like, I was thinking pasado, heavy, and now we're back in that really heavy walk around with a weight on our back kind of environment, and it's exhausting. I feel like you're dragging like a 20-pound like bag of like whatever around after you with all of this. And it's just we have to, I think we have to question, get the information. I think Lawfully podcast is a great, tracking the data, like taking the news, getting immigration lawyers on here to like really tell you what's happening. And hug your immigration lawyer if you see one or if you know anyone, because it's like it's hard. It's hard on us. We are only human beings. We're probably human beings that really like are dedicated to our job and really love America. So it's tough to go through this and kind of see all of this happen. But I think having that information is important, but also keeping ourselves together and knowing that, things can change, everything can get better, like how we see things. I'm always like, everyone's gonna like, oh, how could you find something good in that? I'm like, I could find something good in anything. And so I think we just have to, it's so important. We cannot give up. And we cannot, we have, and I don't always agree with this idea of like, we gotta fight. No, you know what? You can change things without like getting like, it's within you is what you're changing. You've got all this power. So, that's my take on that. And I know everything is like, there's just, when you have people in power that are, you know, dead hell bent on doing something, I mean, there's not a lot you can do except for like expect that, like I told you earlier, I said when we send out our petition, and I'm going to tell you, our success rate is very high. Like we're getting green cards approved. Like every H-1Bs, like even we do waivers for J1s, physicians. We do a lot of that. And so, the people that we in the Health and Human Services that we used to work with to do the waivers, we first name basis, they're gone. They're all gone. Like I don't even know where those people are, but everything's still kind of happening,
Do you
like
have any issues with the pause in visa appointments for J1 holders in June? Did that affect? I know J's normally
I'm
like.
gonna tell you, I was worried. I
Hmm.
was worried because we had one intern coming in from Germany for a client. And I was like, I mean, stuff happens in my law firm that I don't even know if it happened. I'm like, did that get approved? And they're like, oh yeah, he's here. Don't worry. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, so worried because we only had one, we do occasionally, I did any of the doctors on J. I mean, they would be coming to the residency. Most of them probably already got their J, had their appointment scheduled. I mean, you do some sort of planning for this. So I think that may have been, just a few people that got stuck in that. But everyone was like, oh my God, no one's going to be able to come to residency. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, maybe. I don't know. Why are you creating that in the world? We don't know that. And then it ended. I think, also there probably was a little bit of information. Hey, you know what? If you do that pause on J's, they're not going to be able to come to do the residency program. And then there's going to be a healthcare issue. And so, there's lots of rollbacks or changes that are happening. I think there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions that are happening. And, on the guys, it's just all on the guise of like, we got to stop the invasion. We've got all these people are coming to get us and we've got to do something about, I mean, it's like revenge, anger, all these really low level emotions are like running around. And I don't know. I just don't, it's very like the vibe is completely off for me. And I just ignore it because I'm like, you guys are like, because I know like if you want to look at quantum physics, the energy wave that is anger and like fear is like the slowest moving wave. You guys are just dragging along. You're not going to accomplish that much, in the end. And like, if you stay in a like higher vibration where the energy wave just move really, really, really fast, you're going to accomplish more. I mean, it's just like, that's like a simple way to put it. So I just, for my own self-preservation, and for my clients, because as I said, we are having green cards approved. We're getting all of our waivers, all of our doctors. We had one arriving from Lebanon. He told me, he's like, well, I'm like, do you want to start the green card now? He's like, well, let me wait a year. I don't know. So I think what's bad is there's a chilling effect that's taking place. We need those doctors in the underserved areas. We need people, but we had one blanket L denied, a manager in India. We got the whole blanket L. We sent it seems like they're denying and deny these blankets over and over, the blanket L applications. And they're not coming. People are making choices not to come to the US, and it's, will it matter? I mean, maybe not. There's not, maybe no one will die because the doctor's not there to be at the hospital or other doctors are overworked. I don't know. But, we'll see. And it's just, we don't want to create that reality. And I just, like in our practice, literally it's been very positive. Like, I'm just like, I'm not waiting for the shoe to drop, but even in the news that we've gone over today, I think they're going to try. We might be, I'm like, are we next? Like, our employment base mostly has been okay. Are we next? Maybe, but we're going to take it in stride and we're going to keep going. Our employers are very committed to their foreign national workers. So.
Yeah. It's something we're keeping a close eye on. Same thing. Is the shoe about to drop for the employment-based categories as well? Because we see it in our data thus far. Everything, for the most part, has been business as usual. Very little changes when you look at the last 6 months compared to the previous 6 months, or January through June last year. But it's something we're tracking very closely. Okay, Elizabeth, I just want to breeze through the final headlines, and I want to give you a little bit of time to talk about your under the radar stories. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Last week, this has been more broadly reported, but it was first reported by the Washington Post on July 15th. ICE, in a leaked memo, declared millions of undocumented immigrants are going to be ineligible for bond hearings. So a memo from the agency's acting director, who we just heard, instructs officers to hold immigrants who entered the country illegally for the duration of their removal proceedings, which can take months or years. Obviously, a huge paradigm shift in how things were done previously. And now that ICE has a lot of new funding from the reconciliation bill, it makes sense that we hear a lot of reports of them building new detention facilities as well. Elizabeth, I'm just going to go through these stories. Interrupt me if you have anything else to share as I read through them.
For that one, I was talking to some colleagues, and I think they're using a provision that really applies to newly entered, immigrants at the border. So not long-standing immigrants. And I think some of the arguments that they're going to make before a judge are not going to stand up. So I still think it's worthwhile to, make sure you talk to your attorney, be prepared in advance. if there's any chance that you're going to be detained with all the documents that you need for a bond hearing so that you don't have to go looking for an attorney and like figuring all that out. I think, there's still, the administration's pushing. They're just pushing. How far can we go? Because, I mean, they're not God, I mean, it's like there are checks and balances, supposedly. So we do have certain, regulations to fall back on. And there are arguments that attorneys can make on behalf of people that are getting into removal proceedings. So,
Absolutely. And then final one here, also from our friend Andrew Craybaum over at Bloomberg Law. Just an update on the ongoing saga around TPS terminations. This one for Afghans, a federal judge is sort of letting the TPS protections lapse. It's going to impact at least 12,000 Afghans who could have their TPS status revoked. Elizabeth, any thoughts on this? Obviously, the litigation is going to continue, but any thoughts on sort of Afghan TPS or TPS for all the different categories as well?
I mean, we're not a protector anymore. We're just not a protector. I mean, is that who we want to be? I was talking to my mom. Mom, I've spent like all this time looking at like kind of looking inside of me and trying to define what is important to me. What are my values? And like just studying everything and like all the things. And, you know, if someone else is coming, like if I give to someone or if I protect or help someone else, it doesn't take away from me. Like what I give to them doesn't take away from me. It literally gives me more. And from what I've understood in like all of these years, and I've experimented on this, but our government doesn't seem to think that. They believe that, and I think most religious teachings like teach this, the vulnerable, like we are protectors. Like I'm ashamed of our country. Like this is all that, we knew it was going to happen. We're going to get rid of all TPS. We're not going to protect anyone. We're going to send them all home, get out of here. I mean, okay. I mean, it's just that's the policy behind it. I mean, are we legally able to do that? I mean, we're gonna fight it out? Yes, I'm glad that we're fighting as much as we can in the courts, and hopefully give some more relief to some of these poor, people that actually do need protection. They don't have the life we have, and I mean, you'd be surprised when you step up and do something for someone else, how that changes you. And it's just, I just think about how empty, soulless all the people that are doing these things. I mean, they just must be so unhappy. I don't feel like there's true joy and these people that are implementing these policies, and just like they're supposed to be sad, and and I just don't want us to lose our joy over this. And if there's any way that we can help, and I think there are ways, calling our representatives, I think we can give to immigration related charities and do all of that. But it we feel very powerless right now, I think, and we just almost like, I don't know, stay in that loving frequency, even like forgiveness to like, they do not know what they're doing. I mean, um, and we're not victims of the people that are outside of us, and and if we can step out and protect, if we can help, then let's do it. And let's speak out about it.
Absolutely. Well, final thing in the news, this will just be quick. No relevant new updates from Congress this week. The House adjourned early for summer recess. They won't be back in session until September 3rd. The Senate's going on recess, I think, in 2 weeks. And so no developments are going to happen in the House. We covered last week the new Dignity Act, the piece of immigration reform legislation that was introduced by Republican Maria Salazar and has bipartisan support. But there'll be no updates on that, and whether or not it has any chance of getting movement in the House until the House is back in session in September. Elizabeth, with that, before we wrap it up, tell us about any trend or story or signal that you're tracking in your practice that you don't think is getting enough attention in the broader immigration community.
So one thing that was really bugging me, I filed an I-140 for a Ukrainian premium processing in February, and it was crickets. I'm like, oh, we're past the premium processing point. What's going on, you know? And then I called and they said, oh, she's getting a background check. She's here on Uniting for Ukraine, TPS, like she's been here for 3 years, 2 years. So yeah, I've been seeing that extreme vetting in place in random places, I-140s. Luckily, I kept calling them and I just like envisioned what I wanted to happen and they took her off and they approved the I-140, but it took, and I still haven't got my premium processing money back yet, but um, I will. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like very interesting. In all my years, I hadn't seen a security check at the I-140 stage, but we are seeing them. And I posted about this on LinkedIn and I saw other attorneys saying that they have the same exact situation. And then also I've seen with other attorneys that they are doing biometrics in random places. Could be H-1B, could be I-539, could be, I-140. I mean, in my case, they had our biometrics already, I'm sure captured, but they've been doing RFDs for biometrics and doing background checks at stages where you wouldn't normally see that. So I think that might be part of the extreme vetting. I don't know if it applies to, and I believe that Ukrainians and the parolees are the ones that are getting tagged for the extreme vetting if you came on parole under a Biden program. But then I've had like I've had Venezuelan H-1Bs, I've had different things, nothing, they get their H-1Bs approved. And I've heard other reports that, oh, it's like, this poor, Venezuelan professionals just going through hell. Because they're doing this, this extreme vetting and they're just sitting there and not approving the H-1B. And I thought about, litigation options for this and would that work? Unfortunately, I guess my positive thinking or like my constant emailing and like calling Texas Service Center worked, but for my case, but I think, it's something to look out for and be ready for, but I don't think it's happening with everyone. And it's out of order for what we're normally seeing, like, cause with adjustment of status, if you're already here in the United States on a non-immigrant status, usually do biometrics abroad at the, so it's kind of an extra step that just seems unnecessary and it's adding a layer of work and they're actually going to have to refund the premium processing and all of that. But so that's something that I've seen that's happening and I felt in my own self, like with my client who I really care about, like that, cause I was like, don't worry, you're done. I mean, you're golden now. We're going to have an answer in 15 days or whatever. And then it was like months are going by and I'm like, and when things don't happen, you like start to doubt the possibility that you were certain of, and we can't do that, still believe in that possibility. But that's something that I'm seeing that's been interesting, but I'm gonna have to say everything has worked out so far so good with all of our cases. And like if something goes wrong, we're fixing it or whatever. So far so good. And believe me, like if you've practiced immigration law for like any period of time, there's been so much stuff happening, like just all the years, and you just get used to it. And you just have to, like, what I always do is I look back and I'm like, okay, that was really, really bad that happened. And then we literally fixed it and the people have their green cards. I mean, it maybe took some additional time or we had whatever. And like, and now, so I always think about that. I'm like, okay, this may seem bad now, but you know what? We fixed everything in the past. Like we don't have anybody that's like, you know, stuck outside the country or whatever. I mean, we're literally creating, it's par for the course. And I think you just have to focus on that outcome that you want. So, it's really annoying. And I can also I've been through 2 huge construction projects recently and I'm always like, and I use the same philosophy because I'm like, they're like, oh, you're not going to get your permit because, oh, actually we have to move the whole wall in the bathroom and like all of this, and this is not going to work. And so I'm like, okay, I'm like, I'm just going to surrender to that. It's going to be fixed immediately. I'll let these people take care of it. And then like, and then it's done. So I think we just have to, I think it's really important in this time to get like, if you don't meditate, like start, right now to everyone like watching, because like getting our energy under control is so important.
Absolutely. I'm curious with that case in particular, did your client end up having to go and do their biometrics appointment at a field office or no?
She already had biometrics. I'm getting the sun coming in. She already had biometrics. Because I guess she had her United for Ukraine. They didn't have to. I mean, we didn't have to do biometrics. We did have one, and I had a consult on another guy on a 539. And I've heard of other cases where we did get we got a biometrics appointment and had to go in for that. Remember they used to do 539? We used to have to do biometrics. We paid a
Yeah.
fee.
Yep.
No, it's within the power, of course, that they can do biometrics. So I think they're just selectively using their power here and there to do.
Right.
'Cause I-140 stage, you can do the screening there. So it's just not the norm. So I mean, just from my story, like you can go through the extreme vetting and it's still fine. Still come out the other side.
Yeah, it makes me really curious. I always think about this through the framing of what are the trends at scale, right, that we can find in our data. And so I'm glad you flagged that example because now I'm going to go back, look at our monthly biometrics, look at
Yeah.
the monthly number of biometrics appointments, required appointments that are issued in the case status data and see if there's been an increase or if it's just sort of like you mentioned, it might just be one-off cases that have no specific rhyme or reason to them. So that's something I'm going to look at. I'll share that data with you once we have it.
Yeah.
Well, Elizabeth, I really appreciate you joining me today and sharing all of your insight and all of your wisdom on what's been happening in the news and what's happening in the immigration policy space in general. But before we wrap up, I want to give you the chance to tell everyone where they can follow you. And then if there's anything you want to plug, anything you're working on this summer or in the next couple months that you want to plug to the audience, you can let them know here as well.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And I know I probably am like a very unique guest, but I just feel like let me just throw it out there. Let's just be positive. Because man, I don't know. We only have this one life. Let's not spend this 4 years in misery. I mean, I think we could if we wanted to, if we let it get to us. But yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. I'm like pretty active poster on LinkedIn and Elizabeth Garvish. And then my law firm, goimmigrationlaw.com. It's Garvish Immigration Law Group. You can find us there, but you could Google me. No one, there's only a few people that have the last name Garvish. So, which is a name changed, a Hungarian name changed at Ellis Island. And so the things I'm working on, on the theme of practicing law with love and, our happiest law firm. So I've been writing a book for literally 3 years. I mean, and I think it's going to come right at the right time. Lawyers are going to need these tools and it could be for everybody, but just the story behind, kind of maybe we can practice law a little bit differently and with a little bit different energy, and still be successful. And maybe maybe law can be happier because I know everyone knows, lawyers sometimes, for our identity is working 80-hour weeks and we have no life. We never see our children, that kind of thing. And, is there a better way? So I'm working on that. And then on the other thing that I'm working on that's really imminent is maybe I'm going to start out with, now that we've done this, I'm going to start out with maybe some posts, but I've already got a landing page lined up, but it's going to hopefully become a podcast, or posts about this. But and that idea of feeling powerless in this administration, sometimes what do we do? I mean, there's just so much hate. There's so much cruelty. The low vibe is really gets to you, I think what we can do is show up in that love and that high vibration of love, educate the world, the country about the amazing things that immigrants do. And so I had this idea of doing a podcast or like posts or something. I'm getting it together. It's called Love Letters to Immigrants. Like, what if we all wrote a love letter to an immigrant? And I've got some amazing people with like awesome stories that I want to put some love out there. And like, like we'll just get the media bombards you with the fear, and maybe like, let's put something good out there. So that's one of the things that I'm really working on. Is a little bit of a passion project. So stay tuned on that. But I really appreciate the time, and it's been awesome. And I will see you in Madrid.
Yes, we'll have to get coffee. No, I love that, Elizabeth. If there's anything that we can do at Lawfully to help promote that project or the book.
Oh yeah, no, everyone can help me promote. What amazing, yeah, what an amazing way. We'll have to partner in some way. I don't know. I am like, I'm just the idea person. I come up with all these crazy ideas, and people are like, okay. And then I do it, and people are like, oh, she did it again. I'm like, so I'm sure I will do it, but it would be great to, I don't know. I want to do something good in the world. That's all I want to do, and I think, I just meet like, just amazing people. My clients like inspire me to no end. And like people have to hear about it. They have to hear that, do we really want to be that country that doesn't have immigrants? I don't know. Do we?
An important question, and it's you'll find when you come to Spain that it's one that's being asked here as well. But Elizabeth, I really appreciate all the optimism you bring to this conversation and just to the overall community. I think it's much needed in these days, and I think you're doing a lot of good in the world in your day job. And I really admire that you have the energy to look for other ways to do more outside of work. So. Well, Elizabeth, we'll have to have you back on soon. We'll have to get together for coffee or something in Madrid. And
Yeah.
thanks
Love it.
again for joining us today.
Okay. Thanks so much.